Hey, what is going on, guys? So today we are taking a look here at the Premium Bandai Master Grade Impulse Gundam Blanche. And so we've basically got the Impulse Gundam with the Destiny backpack and some new parts there for the center of the backpack. It doesn't have the Destiny's weapons, it's got a little bit different weapons there. And it's got a weird bird thing there on its back. So this is basically the Destiny Regines version of that, but now the Blanche is just basically just a white version of that, essentially. So I believe, as far as I've been able to tell, there's nothing different about this kit and the Master Grade Destiny R, which is also available, just the color. This one does also include the parts to make the different head type for that one has. And so I think the only difference is just the main color, obviously being white in this case instead of like that light pinkish purple color. And then the waterside decals. The waterside decals are going to be different as well. So you have a full sheet of waterside decals, very nice for this kit, that are specific for the Blanche version. So that would be one other reason to get this version if this is particularly the version that you wanted to have. And so yeah, as you can see, it is miraculously actually able to stand on its own despite it being very back heavy. If you get it standing just right, it can stand on its own. I was surprised myself by that, but it seems to be working, at least for the time being. And I gotta say, the build was pretty interesting, pretty fun. Definitely a little bit more complex of a build, I think, than the Blitz and the Duel as far as the frame and parts go. This one as well had a lot of detail on the underside of the armor. I mentioned that in the review of the Blitz previously, but this one is even more so. So all like the Master Grade Impulse Gundam parts, especially like around on the legs, on the underside of the armor, all has tons of detail. It's just a shame that it's all hidden underneath the armor. But even on the outside of the armor, you do have some nice detail there as well. It's not quite as super detailed as it is on the underside, but on the outside this kit does still look very good. Although if you didn't like the all white look of it, then you might not be a big fan of this particular design, but I think that the white looks fantastic. There's just enough off-white to break it up, so it's not just a big mass of white. And of course you have little gray bits, and the little red accents as well also work really well to just make it so that it's all white, but it's not too much. I think it's just balanced really well, and it looks awesome. So once again, here's a look at that beautiful sheet of waterside decals. You have the really big logos up there, one smaller one, a couple of logos, the 08s there for the shoulders basically, and these, and just a whole bunch of more caution markings. And if you guys will remember from the manual, as we saw in the unboxing, there's no decal guide for this, so you're basically just kind of on your own as to where to put those. As far as I've seen, I haven't seen any other source as far as a guide of where these go, but if you guys know, let me know in the comment section and I'll pin that. But we've got some foil stickers as well, basically for the eyes there, a blue one there for the camera in the head, a little blue one for the camera in the back of the head as well, little foil green stickers there for the cameras on the cannons, one here for the bird's mono eye there on his back, then a couple more stickers, one green and two blue there for the optional head parts. So I'll switch out the parts and show you guys the optional head here in a bit. But other stuff we have included here is two pilot figures. Again, I think that's Shin as well as Luna Mario Hawk. These are just extra parts actually, so they're not meant to go with this kit, but you do have those included anyway. And then we also have this set of hands, which are just leftover parts, so that's why I haven't taken the nubs off them yet. But so these are leftover parts, but if in case you need a set of 1/100 scale holding hands, you do have an extra set of those. And then for his weapons, basically all we have here is just the Impulse's beam rifle, which I am not really a big fan of at all, so don't really care too much for this beam rifle design. But the camera here on the top will move side to side. The forward handle, tiny as it is, will also move side to side there like that. Over here you've got a peg. This can be attached onto the back of the waist for storage there. Then we do also have the shield here, which does have the expanding feature. This is just the same shield from the Master Grade Impulse, so you got some nice detail inside there. On the back, some nice detail here as well. The handle just folds out like that for connecting onto the hand. This part will just connect onto the back of the arm. And I'm realizing I put that on backwards. There we go. Connected like that. Then this will plug onto the back of the arm. And then we do have the core splendor as well, with our opening hatch and seated pilot figure there inside there. You've got these big missiles on the underside of there, as well as the landing gear. The landing gear is removable, and if you want to display it flying, we do have an action-based connector for that, so that'll just plug up underneath here like so. And then you can plug that onto an action base to show it in a flying pose. Otherwise, you've got the landing gear, you can just have it just sitting on the ground next to the Gundam if you want. The wings do kind of fold up for the transformation, but there's not really any point to it with this kit. So you can kind of like do the transformation there for that, but yeah, it's just kind of not really any point. It's just not really meant to do that. But nevertheless, it does also look good in white, I must say, and with the little red accent there at the back and just a little gray vents there and the gray vent underneath. It looks nice. And the last thing here is just a couple of other action-based connectors here. So this is the main one for the suit itself, and then this is for the backpack, so that you can have the backpack off and flying on its own. Just remove that like so, and it uses the same connector as some other backpacks from the Seed series. So if you want to plug in the Ale Strike pack or something like that, you can plug that into here instead. Fold that bird head down, and then the connector, you'll just fold that up and out of the way, and then the wings will expand out to the side like that. So when it's up mounted actually onto the backpack, they're meant to be folded up like that, but when it's just in its Destiny R silhouette form, those are meant to be folded out like that, and then of course you can expand the wings out there. Again, these wings are just the exact same as with the Master Grade Destiny Gundam, so you have a really nice expanding feature. They're closed up like that, and then when they expand, these little wings also expand out a little bit, so that's pretty cool. I'm sorry guys, I told you wrong. I checked the manual. They're not supposed to be out like that. They're supposed to be folded down all the way, so in backpack form up, in silhouette form down all the way like that. And I'm checking the manual because I'm trying to see where this actually plugs in. According to the manual, it looks like it's supposed to plug in right there, but I can't see where that's actually supposed to plug in. Where does this go? Okay, so I finally found the problem. This part here for the neck that moves up and down, that gray part there, I had that upside down. So this connector piece there where the action-based connector is supposed to go, that was actually facing up instead of facing down. So I had to take this whole body apart, and in the process I actually broke this little part here as well, this little fin here at the bottom. Broke that, so I had to glue that back, but anyway, now we can put it up on an action base. And also, aside from the head and wings moving, these bits here at the end also open up a little bit as well, these kind of vent bits there at the back. So I mean, as far as bird backpacks go, it's not the worst thing in the world. It's kind of cool if you really wanted to have this out flying on its own and have your Gundam separated, or maybe give the Gundam a different backpack. Like I said, you could use a backpack from a different Master Grade kit. That might be something cool that you could do with this if you were so inclined. Okay, and then as promised, here is the other head option you have. So instead of the V-fin, it's just got this extra camera there, and instead of the red piece, it has just a gray piece with a kind of no chin, and the eyes are now replaced with a mono eye, which is kind of interesting. So this is supposed to be the R head. It's supposed to be an AI, sort of, so it's not actually piloted. And the mono eye can actually be turned as well, if I can get that. So you can have that turned off to the side. So it's definitely an interesting look for a very Gundam type mobile suit to have a mono eye, obviously. So that's just kind of an interesting thing. You could have it like that and then have the V-fin as well. Those parts aren't connected. So if you wanted to have the mono eye and just regular Gundam V-fin, that is another option that you could do. Just sort of mix and match, make it sort of custom if you want. But while we're here, let's take a look at the rest of the articulation. So the head will it'll chicken neck back, and it's sort of kind of looking up, but you can't really get it to look up all that much more just because of the back of the head there. But you can get it to look down plenty farther, like he's looking straight into the cockpit. And how you open up the cockpit is kind of interesting. So you have three moving parts. This top part will lift up like that. This second part will also lift up, and then the little red door is kind of hard to get to, but if you can get to that, that opens down like that, and you've got no pilot figure up inside there. So as you can see, there's just like a thing there. So I'm guessing that's like for the AI version. It just has that, no actual seated pilot figure inside there, no actual seated pilot in the cockpit. I'm not sure. Those of you guys that know more about the story maybe can fill me in on that. But anyway, it's an interesting thing there. For the shoulders, those will pull out to the front a little bit like that. Upwards, you can get those up nice and far. I think that's for the transformation of the Impulse Gundam, but you can get those up very far up like that. The shoulder armor will just move on its own as well if you need it to do like that. Then the arms will just rotate there at the top, double joint in the elbow, give you a nice full 180 degrees there with a nice separation of the elbow armor as well there. The wrist is just on a ball joint, and you also have an extra hinge there in the wrist, so you're able to move that forward and back. The thumb is a single piece on a ball joint, and then the fingers are 3 and 1 separated, but they're each on their own ball joint. So they're the kind of fingers where if you wanted to have each one separated, you could cut the 3 there apart to make them each individually articulated. Otherwise you can just leave them there like that. So great so far, but let's move into the stomach section, and forward bend, backward bend, side bend. Nothing really going on with the stomach articulation for this guy, unfortunately. Any attempts to do so, and you're just going to separate it. Now again, I think that's more for the transformation for the original Impulse Gundam, which is why this one just doesn't really have much for that. So that's kind of unfortunate. As I've said in past reviews, anytime you have a Gundam with a really heavy backpack, it's kind of better that it doesn't have a whole lot of articulation here, because it's just going to end up sagging back, due to the weight of the backpack, so that might actually help this. But let's move down here to the skirting armor. So the front skirts will move up and all the way up like that, so those shouldn't be a problem at all. The side skirts will move up a little bit like so, and then like with the strike, these do actually open up and you've got little knives in here that will just fold out like that, and you've got a set of cool handheld knives. So there you go. That just closes up like that. On the back skirt here, these are also individually articulated and can move up, but as you can see, there's a lot of detail there, but no separate part. So like with the front skirts, you have kind of a little bit of a separate part there, but on the back skirt, it's just nothing. So definitely painting that in gray or something will be beneficial, I think, for the look of this. As for the hip joints, really nothing too fancy here. It's just kind of normal. So you've got a rotation there at the top. You can bring the leg up all the way up to really just about 90 degrees. That just seems to be about it. And then you've got a nice knee bend there, and you can see you've got sliding armor here at the thigh. So when you bend the knee, that armor will slide, and then you've got a second bend for a full 180 degrees. And the knee armor does separate. It doesn't really come too far forward, but you can see it is separated from the lower leg, and you've got actually two parts of that, so that is separated like that there as well. Around at the back of the leg, this little thruster vent here will also move up and down a little bit like that. This ankle armor will move up and down a little bit. The ankles themselves will move side to side a little bit. Kind of wish that was maybe a little bit more, so you'd be able to get a little bit wider of a stance out of that. And it's also interesting, one of the very few designs where the feet aren't symmetrical. They actually have a little bit of an angle to them, so it's not just a perfectly straight. They're not exactly the same, so that's kind of interesting, a unique point about the design of the Impulse. You can get the foot pointed forward to about there, pointed back all the way back, and then you've got the pointed toe that goes all the way down again for the transformation, but it does make it for a pretty nice point there up underneath the feet, some nice detail there as well. And then I should also mention another thing that you can do with the backpack, of course, is that you can take these cannons and bring them up over the shoulder like so for some over the shoulder mounted cannons, but you can also just take those completely off. And then each of these does have a little handle in here which you can pull out, and then it can just be just a handheld, very long rifle or cannon, however you want to call that, but that can also be just handheld as well, so that's pretty cool. So I gotta say, overall, there's really not a whole lot to complain about with this kit. One thing you may notice missing from your standard Gundam loadout is any sort of beam saber. I don't know if in canon, if this just doesn't have them. Of course, we have the knives, so I guess that's some sort of close combat melee weapon, but the lack of a beam saber is sort of strangely disappointing. Normally it's just such a kind of throwaway weapon. I mean, some people like them, some people don't, but it does just sort of feel weird not having one. But I'm sure if you've got extra parts from other extra leftover 100 scale or master grade kits, you probably have an extra beam saber handle and or effect part in there around there somewhere, so you probably could sort that out. But either way, I think the weapons that you do get in the box do give you plenty of options. You have just the Impulse's standard knives, sword, and beam rifle, but then of course the addition of the cannons on the backpack, which can also be handheld, is a nice addition there as well. One aspect of the design that is just strange is the head of the backpack just sticking straight out the back. That just looks weird. It ends up looking kind of weird. You can point that up and it kind of, I think, looks a little bit better, but then it definitely, like from the front, it definitely looks like a bird mounted on his back. As it is from the front, it just looks like he's got big wings, which is one thing, but if you have the head actually pointed up, it does just straight up look like a bird on his back. So there's kind of really no way around that unless you were to just omit that part entirely and then just fill in the center part of that backpack with some other detailed part or something like that, which is probably what I'll maybe end up doing with mine eventually, just getting rid of that part entirely and just changing that up a little bit. But I think this kit is really enjoyable and a lot of fun to pose just because the articulation for the most part is fantastic. There's just the only weak point is just the fact that it doesn't have the stomach crunch, but that is one weak point, and the rest of the articulation is all very good, so it's kind of easy to overlook that. It doesn't really hinder your posing all that much. The backpack is really cool. The brand new parts that we have for this is not very many, but it's enough, I think, to make it different from just your standard kit. Obviously, you can't get just straight up a Impulse with the Destiny backpack. You would have to buy them separately and kit bash them in order to make this anyway. So the fact that you've got this all packaged in one box, if this is something that you wanted to make, if you wanted to have an Impulse Gundam with a Destiny backpack on it, then getting this or the Impulse Destiny R, the other kits, is kind of the best way to do it. You may think, well, it's a p-bandai kit, it's going to cost a lot. Otherwise, your other option is buying two kits, which is also going to cost a lot. So if this is what you wanted to make, I would just recommend just pulling the trigger on the p-bandai version, whichever version you end up getting. I really like the white version. I think this is really cool. That said, the other version isn't all that bad looking either, kind of pink and purple with yellow accents. It's kind of interesting, but this white is just really super cool looking, very prestigious looking. And it's just really not all that often when we see an all-white Gundam like this, so it's definitely got a unique look to it as well. I think it's definitely going to stand out amongst your collection if you have this up on the shelf with a bunch of other kits. Having this one all in white with the big wings on it, it's definitely going to get a lot of attention, I think. And then of course we can't forget about the inclusion of the waterside decals as well. It's always nice to have that when you get a Master Grade p-bandai kit. So we've got a lot of waterside decals in this, so that's really nice as well. One small disappointing thing that I guess I could point out is that we don't have a new pilot figure for this. I wish we would have got the new pilot figure of Elsa Weiss, that pilot that we saw in the manual in the unboxing. It's a cool pilot design, and it would have been nice to have a cool pilot figure, new pilot figure included with this. Unfortunately, not included. So it's just a small thing, but it's just one thing that I guess I could list off as a disappointment with this. Otherwise, very happy with this. I think it's a really cool kit. Definitely worth checking out if you like the design. Definitely worth paying a little bit more for the p-bandai price for this, if this isn't a design that you like, I think. So if you guys do have any other further questions or comments, of course, feel free to leave those down below. Thank you guys all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Have a good one. Bye-bye.